products going out there and, fungicides and biologicals and nutritional stuff and spraying it on the corn, soybeans, and he's had some success stories. So, the title here, he's got 20 minutes, is just to talk about some of the successes he's had. I just wanted to introduce into your thought process a little bit that perhaps just instead of calling a plane in and just saying, hey, let's just put on fungicide and nothing else, that we take a look at doing some other things. So, Aaron, it's yours.
Thanks, Ty. Yeah, like Ty said, my name's Aaron Scheller. Reside about an hour and a half from here, Noblesville, Indiana. Unlike the wealth of knowledge as we've heard earlier today, I'm just a farmer. I don't understand about 3/4 of the words he said. I don't have an agronomy degree. I didn't go to the School of Ag. I did graduate from Purdue, but I'm an accounting major. What the heck does that mean? It means that the only thing that matters to me is the numbers, right? So if it's not going to pay me, I'm going to really struggle to do it, especially right now in this economy. So, I hope if you take anything away from this conversation, it's not, hey, we're out here to grab money, we're out here to make money. And at the end of the day, there's ways to spend it and there's ways to make it. Let's picture my family. We do have an ag retail business, A&L Ag. We're not going to talk about any of the products we really sell today. It's more focused on the fact that there are a lot of great products out there, and there's ways to have success and ways not to have success. I've seen the ways not to have success, but we've kind of journeyed to get there. So, success stories. Instead of talking so much about test plots and this and that and the other, for me it's more about how do I formulate that plan, how do I make the right selection, and how do I get where I want to go. So what's needed when? We've all seen this chart, I'm sure, right? If you've been to a Purdue meeting on nutrient uptake, we've seen this chart. At the end of the day, a lot of my thoughts when it comes back to in-season liquid nutrition, and I say that instead of foliar because when you say things like foliar, instantly everybody shuts their ears and says, I tried that one time, it didn't work and I'm not doing it again. In-season liquid nutrition for me is more focused on, okay, if we look at these charts, and there's tons of them for every single nutrient that plant's gonna need. This is corn, we've got our macros, we've got some micros, but there is still a ton of opportunity in this plant's life on what it needs when we get to that V10 to R1 to R3, depending on when we're gonna apply that last application when we go through that field for the last time. There's still opportunities, and how do I take advantage of those opportunities? And I'm going to call them opportunities. The sweet part about this is when we're making this decision, I don't have to do it, right? I get to make the decision whether or not I want to do it. It's an opportunity. So what's needed when? Obviously, we're going to need something to start with. This is by no means the end-all be-all. So we got to start right to finish right. But if I'm looking at this chart, zinc's got this hump right here. So if I'm going to be spraying my corn at R1, maybe it's a great idea, maybe it's not a great idea to spray zinc on there, okay? But utilize the charts and trying to make a plan. I have not had luck spraying potassium on corn late. Well, it probably makes sense because it's got this huge ramp up and then flattens off hard, right? So no matter what form you put it in, it's already used all it needs to use. Soybeans, the same story. We've got these same charts. Man, some of these micronutrient charts are pretty amazing, though, that you can jump into. Iron, manganese, boron. Boron's a really cool one when it gets later in the season. I mean, we're all the way into R5, and it's just rolling up hard still. So great opportunities to potentially put some boron or zinc in on our soybeans and grab some yield. Sulfur's kind of the same story. What else about when? Nutrient timing. Just because you spray it doesn't mean it's instant. And I'm trying to say that because you don't want that just-in-time attitude. I've hurt myself big time having that attitude, all right? So trying to go apply it when you see the need for it is a terrible plan. I know it's tight margins. I know we're trying to save money. This isn't a money savings moment. It's a trying to make more money, trying to make that better option. Time of day makes a huge difference. We've seen a lot better results, and I don't have exact numbers. We don't use a weigh wagon. This is all off of yield monitors and somewhat estimations of what we feel like works for us. Time of day is a big deal. Mornings are better, mostly because we've can get better coverage if there's a dew or anything like that on. The one thing I will say though, we've seen a lot of differences, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, is we never used to put adjuvants in, and we started doing that. We're going to talk about that, and it's kind of changing. It's widening this window on when I'm having success. Condition of the day makes a huge difference as well, and I'm sure you guys have heard it, but the hotter, the worse. If it's screaming hot outside, that plant shuts down. It makes it harder for anything to infiltrate, let alone nutrients. It should be a plan as part of your budget, not a help to cut costs. Ultimately, we've got to have it out there. We've got to make a plan to raise a good crop. This is just should be a way to add that next level, if that makes sense. If the weather allows us, if the budget allows us, if the numbers allow us, that's kind of how I look at this pass. The other big thing is what form can the plant receive it in? So if I go out there with an Agroliquid 5% boron and I spray it on my crop in a foliar pass, I hope that you're using it like a foliar, because it's not meant to go on the leaves. It's meant to go in through the soil. So different nutrients come to that plant in different ways. There's another company that makes a product called Boron Max that's Spray Tech. It's fantastic because it's in a different form. It's in this boratic acid form. And there's other companies that have this on the market. But it's so important to understand the form that it's in on whether or not that plant can take it. So if I go out there and I want to put sulfur on and I put it on the wrong form or whatever the nutrient may be, you may be shooting yourself in the foot. It may come available, but it may not be available until after the plant needs it. Every nutrient has its own uniqueness. It's important to understand your objective. You just got to make that plan and stick to it. What can I mix it with? Recognize the risk for injury. I've done this early in the phases. Now we've talked, I started doing foliars 10, 15 years ago. Wasn't a lot of talk about low salt fertilizers when I, at least that I really looked at hard. And I made some blends that maybe got too hot and maybe burnt some stuff trying it out. Just be aware that what you're doing and who you're working with, make sure that they've got good formulations that are going to be apt to be absorbed and not injure your crop in that process. I like blends of nutrients. I don't understand agronomy, but I feel like when I put a blend of nutrients, it's almost like sometimes the nutrient I'm looking for rides the back of another nutrient in, or it maybe fills the chain and what it needs, if that makes sense. I kind of think about it like, when you're trying to cross the goal line on a football field, I'm putting every player in there that it needs in order to be successful, rather than just the tailback against the defense, if that makes sense. And then obviously, I looked through a million pictures yesterday, and I couldn't find. I know we've had these, and I've seen these, right? These bad moments. Everybody likes it when it doesn't mix right, maybe on the beach, but when it doesn't mix right at home, it's a nightmare. So make sure that it's compatible. Seems like it's a no-brainer, but when you're trying different things and you start throwing things from different companies into the tank, it can turn into a nightmare real fast, and nothing ruins an experience. Or whether or not you want to try this type of stuff, then a phone call from the guy that's at the shop that says, hey, I'm not coming back anytime soon because we've got a nasty mess to deal with. This is an example of one of the products we use a lot of, but you can see there's just a whole host of nutrients available to that crop in the form that the crop's going to want it in from a in-season nutritional application coming through the leaf. We already saw this from what's Fred's last name? Whitford, Dr. Whitford. This is a huge deal, and I didn't even understand this, but I understood this before Brandon showed this to me when we came up to look at the sprayers. Brandon showed this to me, and I didn't even understand this. I didn't even know this existed, but I knew that 2 years ago we started getting results, more effective and more efficient results, both out of our nutritionals and out of our fungicides. So why? Well, we started putting in a really good adjuvant that drops the pH hard. And what we're doing actually is we're increasing the availability of that fungicide to take effective. There's no way, I don't care how many acres you farm, that you can spray every single acre before 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's just almost impossible. We have to utilize that equipment throughout the day. Well, if I've only got let's say a 3-hour window on pH of 7 water on my fungicide, I mean, that's the optimal moment on a half-life. So if it's super hot outside and you've got evaporation and everything else, that window only shortens on the availability of that protective coating to get out there on that plant. So I think that the adjuvant piece in this cannot be expressed enough, whether you're using a fungicide or whether you're using foliar nutrition. It's almost a must. This is cheap compared to everything else. Don't miss the boat. You know, another big one is how to apply. So you don't know you have a problem until you have a problem. And I think that a lot of the guys in my area notice they have a problem. So the picture that Ty stuck up there about the passes with the helicopter, it was super evident in my neighborhood. We had pretty rough tar spot this year. Guys that did 2 applications of nutrients made a big difference. When they are two passes of fungicide made a big difference because we had it so bad. But the planes and the helicopters, you could see every single gap, all of them. The other one that was really evident to me that was really interesting was I had a guy that sells a lot of aerial application in the shop, and he said, well, I only charge him for the 90% we spray of the fields. Well, that's great. What about the other 10? Because the other 10 in my neighborhood took a 50 bushel hit this year to the line. I got pictures on my phone. I should have stuck them on here. But it's impressive. If you've got it and it's here and it's going to be here and it's overwintering here, you know, where's it going to be at next year? You better start making a plan and put it in the budget for what we're going to do with it. For me, a ground rig increases coverage. It gives you options, you know, and at the end of the day, volume matters. You got to cover that plant. If you're going to cover it, it's going to give you the most optimal opportunity for absorption. I think it said that if you're 30 inches over the crop, 50% of the droplets are gone by the time you hit the crop canopy during the heat of the day in the summer. So if you got a plane out there spraying at noon, 2 o'clock, I'm impressed if he's 30 inches off the crop, right? Like, that's some amazingness. Well, if you hop in one of these guys and you're out there, you could be 10 inches off the crop. So we can really pound that coverage down in there, pound those nutrients down in there where they can be absorbed into the plant rather than just evaporated. You know, at the end of the day, start talking about personal success. It's hard for me to wrap it up and talk about like one trial or this or that. Everybody's needs are different. What your farm's going to call for is going to be a little different than what mine's going to call for because we manage a little bit differently. At the end of the day, the biggest things that I come back with is success comes through trials, even though the trials ultimately cost us. And Ty talked about Jaden being mad about his trial costing him money, right? It's going to be one way or the other. You're going to do a trial, and it's either going to be short of what you expected or way more than what you expected. In one way, it costs you money. But we've got to learn, and we've got to continue to, you know, adapt and innovate and overcome. Don't make in-season nutrition a rescue treatment. I can't say that heavily enough. I mean, I've literally lost 50 bushel an acre before because I waited trying to make that in-season moment when it needed it. And in reality, it needed to be a plan. So have a plan, know what you want to achieve and what your objective is with that nutrient application. Execute the plan, be diligent about it. I understand that we're busy and we have busy lives, but you got to get in the sprayer and you got to get it done. If this is the hope that you want, you're better off not doing it than you are doing it wrong and getting nothing from it, right? And then at the end of the day, we got to learn from the plan. As we have success with it, we get expanded over more acres, or maybe it becomes my entire farm's plan. I mean, today, I plan for 2 nutritional passes on every acre of soybean. I plan for 2 nutritional passes on every acre of corn. The second bean pass will be combined with a fungicide, and both applications of corn will probably have fungicide in them to some degree. Maybe not the maximum Mac Daddy $20 an acre application, but a fungicide or a curative to help me prevent and manage any diseases that I may have out there. These are really rough numbers. I mean, I literally dug through and did an averaging process, but current mixes, we've seen anywhere from 0 to 20 bushel per acre. This has really increased significantly in the last few years with disease pressure and with the advent of putting more adjuvants in. Soybeans, so weather dependent for me, at least on my ground where I'm at. Our Tipton County ground is a little bit more stable. I feel like it's more of a steady, even return. Ground in Hamilton County, if I have rain, I can see huge gains. If it's dry, I can see no gain. So again, that goes back to that, what have I set myself up for? What is my management plan? And some of those are tough to make in-season decisions, obviously. I will say that ROI is hard to determine, right? Generally, for the most part, 2 bushels of soybeans is going to cover my application and my fungicide. It's really hard to do that off a yield monitor, but we feel like it's enough to where we spray it every year. We close our eyes and spray it year in, year out. We feel like that gives us the number we're looking for. At the end of the day, I know it's tight. We can't say to prosperity, right? We know that. We know as growers you can't say to prosperity. You also can't spend your way to prosperity, but you can invest your way to prosperity. So at the end of the day, make the investments on your farm. They're going to pay you returns that you're going to see great dividends in. And if you make them more in the in-season type route, it allows you to keep it in the tank. And ultimately, if the summer isn't cooperative, you can carry it to next year. And we've done that before on our farm. So with that, I'm done. Thank you.